Hello, and welcome to the show Goldsquadrongays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays break down each episode of their favorite Star Wars TV shows while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm Charles Rogers.
I'm Calvin Keener. I've seen a lot of Star Wars.
Yes! You did the thing!
I did do the thing.
I always send, when I send our guests an onboarding email, if they're another podcast host when I'm talking about the introductions, I always say, if you want to, you can always introduce yourself the way that you do on your show. So Calvin just did that, much to my glee.
Am I the first person who's done that?
You are not. Steph did a variation on it. She introduced herself as, I think, the woman half of this show or the woman half of her show.
Right,
So
okay.
Speaking of your show, Calvin, tell us a little bit about First Steps. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. So I am a host on First Steps, a Star Wars podcast, a chronological journey from the Phantom Menace to the Rise of Skywalker, one arc at a time. So it's a podcast. I started this podcast because I have a friend who had never seen any Star Wars. So I'm introducing them to all of Star Wars, all of its visual media, movies, and TV shows in chronological order. So that means Clone Wars before the Revenge of the Sith. It's going to be Bad Batch, Solo, Rebels, and Rogue One before the OT, before they ever even see the OT.
Oh, wow.
We're exposing them to this world in this order and seeing how that just affects their perception of the universe and characters. You know, what's your view of Revenge of the Sith if you know who Ahsoka is and her entire arc with Anakin before she left the Jedi Order?
Right.
And so, yeah.
It's super interesting. And y'all, you're blowing through it.
Yeah, we do several arcs in an individual podcast episode. I kind of wish we would slow down sometimes, but
no, it's great because it's moving along at a clip, and their perspective on it is super interesting to me. Like, having been steeped in Star Wars basically my whole life, I can't imagine a world where I don't know, for example, that Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, I don't know that Vader tosses the Emperor down the shaft. And he's not listening to this show because we're going to spoil Book of Boba Fett for them. But so I'm comfortable saying that. But it's super interesting to hear them reacting to, I wonder, them trying to figure out what the Last Jedi means.
Yeah.
Is super funny to me.
That's awesome. Because it's the only name that they know, but that they know two Star Wars movies names off the top of their head. It's Revenge of the Sith because we reference that movie so often, and then The Last Jedi because that's a really fucking cool name for a movie. So,
that is absolutely badass.
Yeah,
absolutely badass.
And I will say it is good to be on a podcast where I can actually talk about the scope of the entire Star Wars universe, and I don't have to censor myself.
That was part of the reason I asked you on.
Yeah.
I was like, oh no. They're always having to censor themselves on the podcast. Well, let's give them an opportunity to actually talk about some current Star Wars for a change.
Yep.
So Bradley, I don't think we have any news this week other than I'm sad.
Oh, because your book.
The Fallen Star.
High Republic book.
The Fallen Star is literally traumatizing. Okay? You don't understand this. Mm-hmm. It hurt my soul. I cried at work.
Oh, God.
There were tears that were shed. I am emotionally devastated, and I will not recover from this. He's just shaking his head. He's just shaking his head.
I can't relate. I just really can't. I really can't. Because, I'll be reading a paragraph of a book or something, and then I'll be like, oh, wait, did I miss a word? And then I have to go back and reread the same paragraph. So I don't get the emotional weight of the paragraph or whatever I'm reading because I'm just did I make a mistake? I have to go back and read it. I don't remember what I said.
I've recently discovered audiobooks, particularly anyone that Mark Thompson narrates. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to get Bradley onto those. I'm trying to convince him, hey, you should listen to the audiobook.
I mean, the Audible subscription, or, use your public library, Overdrive. That's what I use for audiobooks.
That is true. Oh. Bradley, how are we on that Audible sponsorship?
They haven't contacted us yet. But I'm telling you, guys, Audible, if you're listening, if you give us some kind of advertisement or something, I'll read anything you want me to read. I'll do it on every episode of the podcast. I'll even make it different every single time. I won't even just plug it in. I'll just do a different one every time. If you give us one and you give me a free subscription to Audible, I'll read all these stupid ass books or listen to them.
Yeah, we've got to replace that anchor ad with something at some point.
I know. I'm like, oh, it's so boring. I want something else.
I know that I was about to quote your anchor ad at you, actually. I was about to say something like, and I know everyone's been waiting for us to talk about Anchor, but you slightly beat me. You slightly beat me to the reveal that you guys also have that on there.
Yeah, I feel like that's one that a lot of like first, beginning podcasters use, though. It's not to get into that. It is easy to use.
It is absolutely easy to use. I hear from Bradley, who's the one that actually has to post the episodes.
It's easy to use. It's I'm just kidding. I was gonna do my whole entire thing.
Audible's gonna have to cut us a bigger check.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if there's no news other than I'm sad and we'll never recover from this, let's just dive right into the episode. Bradley, do you want to give us the summary of the Book of Boba Fett, episode 2, not a book title, which was very disappointing to me?
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot we were going to check and see. I totally forgot about that. So you're going to have to remind me on that one. But
I will make sure to bring up to you if any other books have
or any other episodes.
Any other episode title. Words. I'm a professional podcaster. Professional in huge air quotes. Give us a summary, please.
This week, Boba Fett figures out he may not be the only one in charge on Tatooine. During his flashbacks, we see him helping his new Tusken friends and finally being accepted as one of their own. Calvin, on our show, we like to name 2 things you liked and 1 thing you did not. Or I'm sorry, 1 thing you liked and 1 thing you did not.
All right. Well, one thing that I really liked was at the very end, the carving of the gaffy stick. Like I really like, one of my personal favorite arcs in Clone Wars is the gathering, the lightsaber building. And so like those kind of coming of age processes that different cultures have are always really fascinating to me. Disliked the visual of the lizard going up the nose. That made me gag.
I love that. That's such a specific thing. You're like, I didn't like the lizard going up his nose.
One of the more visceral experiences I've had while watching Star Wars, I will say.
I think it speaks to Boba Fett's badassery that the lizard goes up his nose and his reaction is to do a one-liner. Yeah. And people are like, Boba Fett's not badass in this. I'm like, have you had something go up your nose like that? Have you taken a COVID test recently?
Right.
You don't want a one-liner after that.
Charles, what about you? What was 1 thing you liked, 1 thing you did?
One thing I really liked, we're going to put a pin in a thing I really liked.
Okay.
And here's why. There is a moment in this episode. I watched it at midnight when it dropped, right, because I'm an insane person. There was a moment where I screamed. I actively screamed at my computer. Okay. Paused the screen, got up, walked away, petted my cat for a minute, sat there, and then walked back, rewound it, and played it again because I couldn't quite believe what I was seeing. And we will get to what that moment is.
Okay.
One thing that I disliked about this episode, it's such a minor nitpick. It's such a minor nitpick. But I feel like the opening scene of this episode should have been in the last episode. And that's where we talked about on the last episode how it just felt like it abruptly cut off the present day storyline. If this scene had been shifted and that had been right after, and then we had ended with the last flashback of him being freed and becoming like almost like a foundling in the tribe, and that's where we'd ended, then I feel like it would have been better. So it's not even a thing I disliked about this episode. I just wish something from this episode had been in the last episode.
Yeah, I don't want to like jump to it, but like my thing I disliked was the exact same thing. Is like I felt like that the first half of the episode, not even the first half, but you know what I mean, like the first 15 minutes or so of this episode could have been cut, put in the first premiere episode, made it a little bit longer, slightly longer. And then it would have been a solid, perfect premiere episode if you would have just had that one bit. I think right where it cuts off is the introduction of our two new characters or three new characters. I don't want to go into it yet what they are, but that scene where we meet the antagonist of the season, essentially, that is where the first episode premiere should have cut off right when Fennec Shan says, we're gonna have to get permission to kill them, right?
Oh, you would have had it
right where
you would have had it the whole. Okay,
yep.
I would have only
right there
added,
is what I would have cut it off.
I would have only added up to the title card.
See,
I would have ended with
I think you need
the mayor a visit.
I think you need up to that point because it sets up the whole season. So I think if you would have cut it off right there, it would have been such a dramatic cutoff too, and then everybody would have been talking about it. Not that they already are all talking about it anyway, but they would have been like, wow, that was such a fucking good premiere episode. If you would have ended it on those three characters at the end, that would have been fuck. And then I guess you can kind of tell what I liked about the episode too, but
what did characters. It was those three. It was that scene.
Yeah, I mean that scene alone. I think it's because I hit things on my bingo card. But two, because it's just something I put on the bingo card as a joke. Like what if we see these things and then fuck, we saw these things, and I was like, oh my, okay, whoa, wait, something's happening with this show that I wasn't expecting, which was my expectations are going through the roof because I had 0 to begin with, and then you're meeting them / exceeding them double time. So it was wild. But overall, great episode.
Okay. Take us into your first section there, Bradley.
So chapter 2 begins with Fennec Shan bringing back her captured bounty to Boba, where she tricks him into spilling the beans about who hired the assassin.
So I would be remiss if I didn't say that I literally just watched Return of the Jedi last weekend, and the door opening shot where she's bringing the guy up and the door slowly opens from inside is a perfect replica of the same two shots from Return of the Jedi. We learn, we get a little more clues as to what certain words mean, because somebody said them on the podcast last week.
I was actually kind of shocked when the assassin cursed at Boba and said that, and I was like, "Huh, that's funny," because I said that on the episode last week.
I was so happy. I was so happy when that happened, because I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna bring it up." It feels like it's like a direct curse. It's not just a bad word.
Yeah,
it's like the Star Wars equivalent of fuck you.
Right.
Is almost kind of what it feels like to me from the way Boba reacts. Order of the Night Wind is new. I don't remember it ever coming up before. I did love Fennec's line about you're paying for the name.
She's so badass in this episode.
She's so badass in this episode. Later on when she clicks the gun, and in a later scene, when she's doing the stand-up, I love her. I love her. We stand Ming-Na Wen here.
And she's also got the most character moments in this scene, because she's kind of driving the whole scene anyway, because not only does she bring the prisoner in, then she takes her place next to Boba, and then she's like, so who are you? Tell us who you are. And then he's like, I'm not, they're not going to tell. The droid or whatever is like, they'll never tell because they're this super great assassins. And she's like, yeah, I mean, okay, I've dealt with them before. It's not that.
I'm Master Assassin Fennec Shan. Mind your business. And then she's the one that actually pulls the quote unquote Rancor door.
Yep. To
drop the guy down, and she just reaches down and does it.
I love that the Gamorrean guards just habitually put the prisoner on top of the Rancor trapdoor.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, I think they're just used to Jabba would put them right there just in case.
Yep, we're just gonna do things like Jabba did. Speaking of the Rancor pit, did anyone else think it was weird that there was a rat in it?
No.
I can get into this a little bit later, but I was just this episode of Boba Fett was just full of Dune references for me, and so seeing the little mouse I was just like Muad'Dib. But anyway.
Oh yeah, you're right. it is full of Dune references, but I will let you tell us all about them because I've only seen the movie. Although I very intently watched the movie. It was full of very hot men. Look, if you put Oscar Isaac, Jason Momoa, Josh Brolin, Timothy Chalamet, all in a movie, and a bunch of badass ladies when the hot men are not on screen, I'm gonna pay attention to your movie.
I mean, look, I'm gay, but like Zendaya like does it for me, you know.
I mean,
yes,
very reasonable. Exactly what you're saying. I would let Ming-Na Wen step on my neck. Not even like as a sexual thing. If I have to go, that's the way that I'm okay with going. No, the rat is there. This is super fascinating. The rat is actually apparently there because if you watch Return of the Jedi, there are actual rats in the Rancor pit. So it's a callback to that. If you look closely, you can see rats in the Rancor pit. So canonically, there were already rats there. I can see both of you like trying to get through mentally this scene of where the rats are.
Are we doing the thing again where we talk about like, is it a reference or is it just a thing that exists in the universe that we just accept?
This one kind of straddles the line.
I don't know.
Because it's a thing that feels like it shouldn't be in the universe.
I thought it was just a joke. Like it was a joke that was like he was expecting a giant Rancor and then now there's like a tiny little mouse and he was afraid for nothing. I think that was the joke.
That is the joke. Okay. But the reason it's not like a space mouse is because you can see like rats, like Earth rats in the scene in Return of the Jedi. So they're already established to being there.
They should have just put a fucking space rat in there, like the one from Dune, and then I would have been happy with that.
Well, I mean, we can't rip off Dune too much. George Lucas already did that.
It is Star Wars after all, so
that is true. We do a lot of ripping off Dune here.
And then the title card comes up.
It's not a fucking book. It's
the
not
Tribes
a
of Tatooine is not a book.
The Tribes of Tatooine is not a book that I'm aware of.
It's not a famous sci-fi novel book where every episode was supposed to be a title of a sci-fi novel, and now they just ruined it.
Look, I'm incredibly disappointed because I thought I was going to be able to actually teach you some things about literature. Nope. And now the only book that you've been introduced to is Stranger in a Strange Land. And as I mentioned in our previous episode, Robert Heinlein can absolutely go drive off a cliff. I do not like that man nor his work in the slightest. I am livid that this is the only book that you have learned about was this Martian sex cult book. So, Book of Boba Fett, you have truly disappointed me in this regard. You have made me sad. Bradley, can we hear about the next section of scenes before I go on a tangent about the Martian sex cult book again?
Up next, we head back to Mos Espa, where Boba and company confront the mayor, only to find out the mayor may not be the one pulling the strings.
Oh no.
So yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like Machais knew that the assassins were coming, but like he wasn't the one who said, who paid the money to have them go.
Machais knows way more than he's letting on.
And I told you last week, remember, I said that Garza also, like, I told you that the way she was talking about was seemed very like demeaning, like oh, I know you're not in charge. Like, oh, I'm like babyfying you, like I'm pacifying you by telling you you're in charge.
Go ahead, Pat.
Right. Like she's like, oh yeah, you're in charge. Yeah, that's okay. But she knows, and the mayor knows, like who really is in charge. And so that's why, like, she's like, oh well,
you know what she's doing? You know what she's doing in episode 1? She's doing the customer service voice. I just now realized that she's doing the thing where a customer is coming in and being entitled and you don't want to piss them off. So you're like, yeah, sure. Absolutely, sir. I will look right into that I can absolutely go check the back. 100%.
100%. Yeah.
I will definitely go check in the back for you. I just realized that's what she's doing. Speaking of customer service people, I have never related to anyone harder than I related to that clerk.
First of all, the clerk is hilarious. Just because, like, I don't know what they're doing with the clerk and the major domo, but like there's just the characterization of like like, you're not really that important. Like, I know my job is important, so I'm going to do my job. But like, you're just an unruly customer that I have to deal with. And like, I don't care about you. They both act that way towards him. And it's so funny. Just the characterization of both of them. I thought they were fucking hilarious.
Red tape is so funny when you're not the one having to go through it.
Oh yeah, like on the one hand, we empathize with Boba Fett because this is frustrating and he wants to deal with it. But on the other hand, I mean, the dude's right. He did walk in without an appointment.
That's right. Do you have an appointment? There's all these other people sitting here waiting to see the mayor and they have appointments. So I don't know what you're doing here.
I'm sorry, your claim to fame is you appeared in 2 films in the 70s and 80s, but
for less than 2 minutes.
For less than 2 minutes, but there you go.
You want to hear a fun fact about this actor, though?
I would love to. Can you tell us this actor's name? We'll start with that.
Well, his name was Galen Howard. And thanks to the lovely website IMDb, I learned that he was also on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Of course he was.
So every actor this season, Calvin, I don't know if you know this, but so far, every single person that we've ever like delved into so far, everybody's been on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't know what it is. So Ming-Na Wen paved the road for all these people to be on the goddamn show because they were all on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
I have not watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm only just now starting Daredevil, so we'll get through that. But yeah, that's fun.
I mean, you don't have to watch it. I think it's just like, it's just interesting. Like, he's only been in one episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so it's not like he's like super important or anything, but it's just funny that all these actors are just like coming over to the Star Wars universe and the Marvel universe, because like we always talk about the Disney trifecta, where if you can get into 3 things, you've achieved the Disney trifecta. And so far, really, only Ming-Na Wen has really achieved that for us.
1.5. Ming-Na Wen achieved it in films, and Ming-Na Wen being in a Disney film and being a Disney princess and being a headliner in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and being a headliner in Book of Boba, no one will top her. But there is one other person we found who completed the Disney trifecta, and it was one of the shuttle pilots from season 2, episode 8 of Mandalorian, was also in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Saving Mr. Banks.
The classic film, but you know.
Which we are technically counting as a Disney film since it is Disney propaganda.
Yeah, it is. It's a Walt Disney Studios, I think. So,
Yeah. Speaking of actors, I did miss bringing up Paul Darnell. I just want to bring up Paul Darnell real fast. He's the guy who plays our Night Wind assassin. Big stunt guy. He's been a stunt double. Just looking at his IMDb page, which, yes, I know, Pablo, it's not 100% correct, but it's the best I've got to work with. I'm just kidding. I love you, Pablo Hidalgo. Please stay on Twitter. Don't let anyone bully you off it. You are a light in the darkness of my world. This guy, Paul Darnell, he's done stunts for The Mandalorian. He's done a lot of stunts for The Mandalorian, just a lot of episodes. Including stunt doubling for Timothy Oliphant in The Marshal. He has done stunts for Spider-Man Far From Home. He's done stunts for Jurassic World. He's done stunts for... He was Robert Pattinson's stunt double in the Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 1. And there's a photo on IMDb of them standing next to each other. So
they didn't do Part 2? Like, I don't understand. Like, what happened there? Like,
doesn't look like he did Part 2.
Darn.
So that is
opportunity.
That is our although he was his stunt double in Twilight.
Oh,
the original
there
Twilight.
You go. So he came back for the last one. Good for him.
Yeah, or he came back for the penultimate one. Yeah.
Right.
So that's our facts about Paul Darnell.
Okay.
And Galen Howard. I just wanted to share that. We talked last week about Mos Espa. How Mos Espa looking pretty good compared to 40 years ago. So I paused it, and I actually was kind of looking to see whether or not it would be conceivable that the Naboo ship, the yacht, landed outside, and Anakin lives like literally on the outskirts of the city. And it is 100% feasible that that's what's going on. That the cities always looks like this, but Qui-Gon Jinn in his infinite wisdom ducked into the first used car dealership after he crossed into city limits and was like, yeah, I'm going to stake the future of the galaxy on this one used car salesman.
I noticed in the town too. I don't know if you picked up on this, but there's a lot of Trandoshans.
Yeah, that was my next note. So
okay, good.
So we know the dinner party scene is coming up.
Right. That's probably the next episode.
There's a Trandoshan in episode 1. There was the dinner party scene that's coming. So I think the Trandoshans are supposed to be, they're going to be important somehow.
Yeah, because there's a lot of them. And I've noticed that the costuming for the Trandoshans, again, is so good. Like, they look so, like, vigilant. I don't know how else to say it. Like, they, like, very much, like their eyes, they look like they follow you and everything.
Yeah, they're creepy. And not to jump ahead, but the creatures that appear later that are practical effects, so some of them are digital, but there's one in particular that is a practical guy in a suit. Unbelievable. They went all out for guys in suits in this episode, in this series, which, I mean, it's the Book of Boba Fett, so you'd imagine. Minor little fact, the voice of the mayor is, once again, Robert Rodriguez, doing his best Dee Bradley Baker and Corey Burton impression and trying to voice everyone.
Did you think the voice was weird?
No. Well, on my first watch through, yes. On my second watch through, no.
Okay. I just thought it was weird, but I think in a good way it was weird.
It lends to the vibe of him, like, he's softly knowing more than what he puts on, what he's letting on.
That also, the translator doesn't hurt.
Yeah. It does seem to be a general theme, though, of people knowing more than they're letting on in this show. Sure. His line of running a family is more complicated than bounty hunting. It feels like almost a direct callback to bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
Okay.
It's like poetry. It rhymes.
Yes, it rhymes. Before we get into the next section, and because this is a kind of a hint of the next section when he says that. So do we see the connection now, what he means when he says running a family is harder than
bounty hunting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would you have known at this point, because he said family, so would you have known that that's what he was talking about at this point?
No.
That didn't catch on to anybody. I didn't catch it. I'm just saying.
No, I mean, like, I just got Sopranos crime family vibes,
Right.
Which was, I'm going to slightly address some of the criticisms of the show. I don't agree with them, but I am going to address them. A lot of people were like expecting this dark and gritty mafia story. And one thing I like about the show is those elements are still present in the show.
Right.
There's a line that will come up later that is a direct mob reference. Like, it just flat is a thing in the actual real life mafia that is going to come up in this show. So that stuff is definitely present. It's not the focus of the show, but it's kind of there in the background.
So now, quick question. You think that the first episode should have ended before we meet the mayor or after?
Before we meet the mayor. I think it should have ended when the guy
the line
says,
with, we should go meet the mayor.
We should go meet the mayor. Boom.
Okay. That's the
end
end
of the episode.
Okay. I agree. I think that would also be a good stopping point.
You could even do everything up to when he steals the swoop bikes, jump back, do the thing that's coming up, the sanctuary, and then the scene right after the sanctuary, and then go back to the Tuscans. So it is kind of weird that it's all the present day stuff is front loaded, and then the back half of it is the flashback stuff. It's not back and forth like the other one.
Once I do the intro for this next scene, like, this is it for the future, basically, or the present day for the most part.
On the other hand, though, they do have to stick to the framing device of the back to tank.
Yeah, like, if they weren't sticking to the back to tank triggering the flashbacks and stuff, I would be a proponent of like having all the present day stuff being the pilot, and then a trip to the past for Escape of the Sarlacc, for episode 2 for Escape of the Sarlacc Pit and everything that we got at the Tuscans in episode 1 and this week. But also we've got more of the Tuscans coming out, or more of the past coming up, because we got another 4.5 years to cover before we spot him in Mandalorian. So
right.
We need to know, why is he not currently with the Tuscans? What happened?
Right.
Seemed like he was getting on pretty well with them.
Up next, Boba and crew head to the sanctuary to get some answers from Garsa. Unfortunately, they find 2, as we realize that Jabba's cousins, the twins, are taking an interest of Jabba's old territory.
But one of my favorite moments is Max Rebo stopping playing when the drum beats start. Because he's like, yeah, I know what's up.
But again, we saw Max Rebo again. So
we did.
This is awesome. Like I didn't think we were gonna get him twice now. Like this is hilarious how it's like we thought he was a fun little Easter egg in the first episode, and now he's in the second episode. He's a bona fide co-star of this show.
He's gonna be back in the palace by the end of the season.
You think? Oh, you know what?
I hope so.
I will bet you anything Calvin's right.
Okay, let's make a note of that now that Calvin said that, and then when we go back in the finale and we're like, did he show up in the palace at the very end?
Did he go to the palace?
Yep.
Well, I said in episode 1 that I thought it was important that we opened on the empty palace because the show is clearly going to be about Boba gradually starting to build alliances and power and people coming to his side and filling up the palace. Mm-hmm. So it would track that eventually Max Rebo would go there. But I did like that he was like, oh, drum beats. I know what that means. Time to stop playing.
And also by this point, I still had no idea what was happening. Like I was like, wait, what is going on here? And when I saw them turn the corner, I almost died.
When I heard the drum beats, I was like, there's no way.
I just knew that there was a litter coming, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way that litter is going to happen. Nope. Round the corner. Not one. But 2 huts.
Yes. So first of all,
like
bingo
incestuous vibes.
Oh, thank God I'm not the only one.
That was for sure part of it. That has to be part of it. Like that has to be like a thing.
There's like a Jamie and Cersei thing going on here.
For sure.
Like, I'm sorry to reference that very good 6-season show that we all used to watch and then collectively forgot about. Oh, definitely. Like, they're so creepy and weird.
Well, I wish I could count that as 2 on my bingo card because technically I put huts on my bingo card, but I didn't put 2 huts. So I need an extra space. It was close.
You need Zuckuss and IG-88 to get bingo.
That's right.
At this point.
I also, and just as a bonus, I would have liked to see Rada the Hutt. Because if we're gonna go with Jabba's cousins, why the fuck could we not go with his son? What the hell is going on?
Thinking about that. Where is Stinky?
Where is Stinky? He's got to be nearby.
Stinky may be too young, but it's interesting because I mentioned in the last episode that in the comics, Darth Vader actually murdered a bunch of the Hutt Council. He murdered a bunch of Hutts. So a lot of their power structure got decimated. So
maybe he's like running the council like of Hutts right now on Nal Hutta. Like maybe that's where he is.
I guess Hutt. I mean maybe it did take 5 years for 5 and change years for I don't know how long ago Darth Vader murked all the Hutts, but like I guess it could take like that long 7. To restructure a family.
Yeah, it would because if you think about it, especially since Jabba gets croaked 2 years later, and Jabba was like the sole person in charge. So if you got a bunch of Hutts vying for power,
right?
And maybe here's my thought: maybe the twins like didn't get a lot of power and influence on Nal Hutta, and they're being given this either as like a consolation or a get out of our hair.
Right. Like
by the Hutts.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm so curious about Hutts. Like I'm like, that's why I told you in our episode 0, I was like, I want more Hutts. I want more Hutt things.
Well,
like,
you got what you wanted.
Yes.
You got Hutts. And we got a lot of stuff. We've got like they work on proclamations. They have this whole structure in place. There's something called the Hutta is apparently like this debauched place where they just stew in their own debauchery. Honestly, sounds fucking rad. Like, sounds like my kind of people. Here's an interesting question, though. They're his cousins.
Right. We
know of one uncle.
Right.
Do we think they're Zero the Hutt's kids?
Oh, because the female one or female presenting one, I really don't know with Hutts if they're all like asexual or because they're like slugs, so I don't really know what that means, but
they are, I believe they reproduce. I don't believe they reproduce sexually.
No, it has to be like asexual.
I don't think that there are like like a male or female anatomy.
No, I don't think so. I think they're just like it's more masculine and feminine presenting because they don't really.
It's more like gender presentation. It feels like than anything to do. Yeah, which raises an excellent question of whose kids are those?
Right, because like when we talk about Jabba and we talk about Stinky, like there's no like Jabba doesn't have like a quote unquote wife / breeding partner. So like we
there's
don't
no
really
lady Jabba running around.
I'm thinking, like if quote unquote they are someone's kids, then that would be, I think Zero would make sense because the sister, that's what he called her, his sister or whatever, she was like a pinkish / purplish color. So possibly Zero's kid.
There's a lot of questions. I would be remiss if I didn't point out the absolute star of the scene, which is the leftover weasel costume from the Suicide Squad in a metal bikini,
in a slave Leia bikini,
which just as far as background, I praised them last episode, but they're just throwing all sorts of weird shit at us.
I can't. It's too funny. It is giving me slave Leia but weasel vibes.
It's what the people truly want. This is what you wanted from your Boba Fett show. You wanted the leftover weasel costume from the Suicide Squad in a slave Leia costume. Okay, let's talk about the reason I freaked out.
Wait, there's another reason why you freaked out? I don't understand. Did something else happen in this scene that was just as jaw-dropping and exciting?
For me. So Boba's like, your sister's right. If you want my territory, you're going to have to kill me. And there's this like hard stomping walking sound. And from the left side of the screen, from the frame, emerges the back of a large hairy creature. And black motherfucking chrysanthemum walks around this litter. And I lost my goddamn mind because of the nature of my job. I have been able to read every single Star Wars comic. I know who Black Chrysanthemum is, and I lost my shit. This was the moment. I have to ask, did either of you know who the fuck that was besides giant, scary black Wookiee?
I just saw anti-Chewbacca,
Yeah, I was like, oh look, evil Chewbacca is here.
He fought Chewbacca. Chewbacca lost.
Oh shit. Okay. Well, yeah, I had no idea who he was going in, but I was like, that's a cool fucking design.
And I don't think we've seen a bad Wookiee in live action, or in the visual media before. So
never, not once have we seen. Gotcha. Not once have we seen a Mad Claw. Not once have we seen anything remotely like this.
Right, because we've only seen like Tarful or whatever in Revenge of the Sith, right? Like he's like the bulkier looking Chewbacca. So I don't know.
That's Tarful.
Tarful, Chewbacca. We've seen Sagwa in Solo Star Wars Story.
Oh yeah, the skinny one.
We've seen Chewbacca's family in the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special. We've seen Wookiee Jedi, both. Was it Gunji? I think.
Shout out to Gunji. I love him.
Yes. Yeah, that was his name. And then Bur-Yaga, my sweet Wookiee Padawan boy in the High Republic. Yeah, no, this is the first time we've seen like a not nice Wookiee on screen.
I love it.
Black Chrysanthemum, and I love this because Boba looks at him and goes, I don't need a gladiator. Or like, bring all the gladiators you want.
Right. It's not going to affect me, or my decision.
So about that, he's 100% right. Black Chrysanthemum started out as a gladiator and became a bounty hunter. But it's a sly dig at Black Chrysanthemum. Because Black Chrysanthemum was also one of Jabba's best bounty hunters while Boba was working for him. And Boba just looks at him and is like, you're like a gladiator to me. Right. But you're not even a bounty hunter. Fuck you, I guess.
He's like, go back to the fighting pits or whatever. Or he says something along the lines of like, I'm not a sleeping guard at the fighting pits or
Death
something.
pits of Dwar or whatever, which I checked and I don't think it's the same ones he was in the comics. So I'm not 100% sure. No, he was a bounty hunter. He worked for Jabba. He's been all over the comics. I most know him from his team ups with Chelly Aphra. Shout out our lesbian Indiana Jones space archaeologist queen. We love her. Chelly Aphra appearance when?
Well, you say that.
I say that.
And now I'm going back to our episode 0. Remember, we were talking about the trailers, and there was one trailer where there was a mysterious woman on a motorcycle or something, and we were like jokingly saying like, ha ha ha, that's Omega. Like, but now I'm like, wait, now that they've introduced this guy and they have such a strong connection, like, what if that's Dr. Aphra?
Yeah, I can actually help you with this, but for context, Bradley has no idea who Dr. Aphra is. So please do not jump down his throat. Dr. Aphra is an Asian character, like very clearly Asian. So that's definitely not her. Also, that girl is way too young to be Aphra.
Well, I mean, I don't know the timeline here with these characters. I'm just saying, is it possible she can show up now because you got him and they have such a deep connection?
Well, it's not impossible because now Black Chrysanthemum is here.
Right.
And I think she still owes him money. She probably still owes him money. She owes a lot of people money.
And I don't know what like her purpose would be in the show, but like if you're gonna introduce a random ass character, why not introduce it in, the show that we didn't know we were getting?
Yeah, Black Chrysanthemum. I love this guy. He's wonderful. And I'm excited to see what they do with him.
I mean, like inevitably I was talking about this with somebody earlier, like, so if the twins are the quote unquote antagonists of the season, right? They can't actually physically do anything in the show. So like, I think this guy is your replacement, your physical replacement for them. So if he needs to fight at some point, the bad guy, then it's like Boba and him go head to head. Although I have a theory that it'll actually be Fennec. It'll be the one who's fighting him. So
I agree with that. Yeah.
I think that's what's going to happen. I think Boba's going to either be like incapacitated or doing something else. And then he's like, well, you've got this, Fennec. You can handle this. You're just a 50-plus-year-old woman who can take on a Wookiee. That's fine.
If I see Fennec Shan go toe-to-toe with Black Chrysanthemum on screen, I will expire and pass away and leave this earth.
I'm telling you, this is it.
I mean, no one will metaphorically be stepping on your neck with that.
It'll be all I've ever wanted. One tiny note I have for their interaction. It's the same thing. The Hutts do the same thing to Boba that he does to Black Chrysanthemum. The Hutts call him Bounty Hunter. So they don't see him as an equal.
Right.
Or worth their time. So I found it interesting that he does it. He invalidates Black Chrysanthemum, what Black Chrysanthemum has earned. And then the Hutts turn around and do it to him.
So I also want to talk about the character too, because I did a little research. And
you know what research is?
And by research, I mean I watched the Star Wars Explained video on Black Chrysanthemum, and that was it.
I watched it over lunch.
And so he brought up something interesting where he was like, some people may think that because Black Chrysanthemum has crossed paths with ObiWan Kenobi that he's going to show up in the ObiWan Kenobi show for some reason. And I agreed with him because he was like, no, I don't think that'll happen because it doesn't really make much sense for the story that Kenobi is going to try to tell us. That being said, we clearly can't judge anything by anything because we know nothing.
Well, that story's already been told too.
Right. But I go back to the episode of Mandalorian where Cobb Vanth shows up, where that quote unquote story has been told before, but then they just kind of retold it to us in a different way. So I don't know.
Well, that had a narrative purpose. That was the same thing as the Kanan thing.
Yeah.
So the Kanan thing in Bad Batch, where they completely changed his Order 66 from the Kanan comics. And they did it for a narrative purpose. There's a very clear reason that they're doing that. I agree. I don't think Black Chrysanthemum's going to show up in ObiWan Kenobi.
I don't think so, but timeline wise, I'm curious, like when did that interaction happen versus like that had to have happened years ago, like way before this, right? Like because obviously because Kenobi's dead by this point, so
right.
I guess I just forgot about that for a second. So
you know, doesn't mean you've got a better grasp on timelines than a guy I was talking to on Facebook the other day, to whom I was patiently having to explain that Book of Boba Fett does not come after the Rise of Skywalker. They're not releasing these in chronological order. I know that Luke Skywalker is. Calvin's just got this shocked, horrified face.
What?
Calvin's just like sitting there, mouth agape. That this was a real conversation I had with someone, but I swear it's true.
So Calvin, I have a question for you. In terms of like this show, so like in your podcast, when you go through these things, if for example, like let's say, what are you guys on now?
We just finished season 5 of the Clone Wars.
Okay, so
in the Ahsoka has
timeline,
just left the Jedi Order.
Ahsoka just left, and it ruined Andy's entire day.
Got it. Okay, so in terms of timeline wise, you're still in the Clone Wars-ish era. If like, so for example, like Bad Batch came out recently, that takes place after Clone Wars, but like it came out, you know, so like for example, if something comes out before Clone Wars, are you gonna stop what you're doing and then go back and do the new thing, or are you just gonna keep going and then come back to it later?
We haven't really kind of discussed that yet. I mean, that's an interesting thing going on into especially the next coming year of Star Wars media, because we'll be hitting both Andor and Kenobi, which like we're going to probably get to Revenge of the Sith around March, April-ish.
Right.
Probably maybe before that. But probably won't hit the original trilogy until December or so. So Andor and Kenobi will probably be coming out while we are recording episodes for Bad Batch or Rebels.
Right.
So
it'll kind of tie up nicely for you, at least a little bit.
Yeah. And the next, like, I mean, Acolyte's coming out whenever that does come out, and that is the only pre-Phantom Menace thing that's TV show wise, and that, I mean, we haven't seen a lot about that yet. Yet.
Okay, Charles, we'll make the High Republic show at some point.
High Republic animated series when? High Republic animated series about the vessel crew when?
I imagine that we would stop.
You would stop, and go back.
Especially if we were knocking like up specifically where certain things fall in the timeline.
I see.
In regarding specifically to Andor, and Bad Batch season 2.
Right. Okay. Interesting. I was just thinking because like it's weird how like this takes place, you know, after Return of the Jedi. But if you were watching this in theoretically chronological order, you would have to watch Return of the Jedi, then Mandalorian, then Book of Boba, and then move on to the new trilogy. So it'd be interesting to see. Like, I've never thought to watch it in like chronological order now, including TV shows, because we didn't really have that option until last year. So it's kind of like a weird
I did that during quarantine. That's what gave me this idea.
My thing was Disney Plus dropped on November 17th. Rise of Skywalker came out a month and some days later. And in that intervening time, I rewatched the first 2 prequels, Clone Wars, Revenge of the Sith, Rebels, Rogue One, all of that. I watched everything in order, basically. And it was down to the wire so much that I was watching the last episodes of Resistance before seeing Rise of Skywalker on my phone in the parking lot, waiting to see the movie. I am an insane
my friend,
person.
Have dedication.
I did this, and it was insane. For me, that was really interesting to go through it. And so I really enjoy listening to podcasts where we go through in chronological order, just because it's interesting to get that perspective on it, especially with Andy having never seen anything before. So Andy's going to see something like this. Oh, it's a good point. I'm wondering what Andy's going to think of like Mando and Book of Boba leading into the sequel trilogy.
Right.
And yeah, whatever the sequel or whatever this cycle of the Mandalorian, Ahsoka, Book of Boba Fett is doing to set up the First Order, and how, I mean, because a lot of fans have very specific ways that they view the sequels, and I just kind of wonder if more context going into the sequels will help to, in the same way that Clone Wars really heightens the prequels in retrospect.
Yeah, I think that definitely one thing that I was waiting on, because I remember when the sequels were coming out and people were throwing the same bitch fit that they always throw, because the latest Star Wars movie to come out is always the worst one ever made. But I remember thinking to myself, I was like, give them about 5 or 10 years to do some supplementary material to fill in some of these gaps. And I'll bet they're going to make a lot more sense after the fact.
Right.
I'll bet you that's probably what's going to happen. Like, after reading the Poe Dameron comic, I could appreciate Force Awakens a lot and Last Jedi a lot more. Reading Resistance Reborn, the novel, helped contextualize a lot of Rise of Skywalker for me and some of the arcs in there.
I might look into that novel then, because I definitely need Rise of Skywalker recontextualized for me.
Yeah, it makes a little, that one did a good job of explaining how did they rebuild the Resistance, but also like deals with the fallout of Poe's story from Last Jedi in a way that Rise of Skywalker really doesn't. Like, he's back in and trusted by people during Rise of Skywalker, and the book does a good job of explaining how he re-earned that trust. And then on top of that, there's a new one coming out called Shadows of the Sith that's supposed to talk about Lando and Luke's journey and also give more about Rey's parents. The last line I want to bring up from this sequence is Fennec's line, the one that I mentioned earlier that's a direct reference, where she talks about whether Hutts, we would need permission to kill them. Calvin,
Leia didn't need permission to kill Jabba the Hutt. Why does Boba need permission now? He has a gun, you know?
Because Leia Organa does what Leia Organa wants, and that's also true. There were no witnesses.
That's true. They all died.
I am remembering Bloodline now, and the whole,
yeah,
Boba should be able to do what Boba wants.
I agree 100% that he should have just shot them. That's probably why Black Chrysanthemum was there, to stop him from doing that.
Also, we wouldn't have a show if he did that. So
permit me to become Aaron for a minute. Oh, who the fuck am I kidding? I just would have done this anyway. So this is a reference to a real life, actual historical thing, which was in, I'm going to do a terrible job of explaining this, but the short version is, if you were in the mob, you were a made man. That meant that you would have to get permission from the head of the family in order to kill a made man. So if somebody is a made man and you wanted to kill them, you had to go and get permission and lay out your case for why you should be able to do that. And the head of the family could sign off on it or not. And if you remember, Joe Pesci's character in Goodfellas, I think, that's what gets him in trouble, is he whacks a made man, and you're not allowed to do that. So this is a reference to that I guess with the Hutts, it operates by the same rules. If you're a Hutt, people have to get permission to kill you, unless you're Leia Organa, in which case you do what you want. There's your obligatory history fact for the day.
I was going to save it for the end because it's in the credits technically, but it's in this in the sanctuary scene. So I feel like I should bring it up because it's from last week. So the Twi'lek people that work in the cantina, yes, we'll call in the sanctuary.
The obviously a brothel, but we're not going to say it's
right. I'm trying to dance around that. So in the credits, both the actors are listed as servers. So they are canonically just servers. They're just servers.
They're just servers.
In this lovely place. So we don't need to read into that any more than we already did. They just work there. They're just servers. They just go around and, serve people. That's all they do.
Serve at the pleasure of the people.
That's right. Back in the Bacta tank, we learn more about Boba's time with the Tuskens, teaching him how to fight, and a hover train that's passing through their territories, causing a ruckus.
I love it when Star Wars is trains.
You like the space train?
I love space trains. I love space trains so much. They make me so happy.
I thought this was a reference, I guess. Apparently, a train in a desert is like a reference to some like movie that I've never seen before. I'm sure you might know what it is.
Well, I mean, this kind of thing there would be like the train would go and they would shoot at the Native Americans just to protect the train.
Right.
Or in their view, they were protecting the train. We can totally.
It's interesting because it's playing into the Western trope of the train in the desert. But it's also reversing it because as opposed to it being, it's those dastardly natives attacking the train and we must defend the innocent passengers.
Mm-hmm.
No, the train's one, on their land. Two, it's just capitalists carrying drugs. And three, they're just shooting them because they just make assumptions about them that are not true.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's really fascinating because it's like they took this trope and they subverted the trope, which was really cool.
Yeah, I like what they're doing with the Tuskens in that they're not only humanizing them, but they're giving us way more like to care about them than we needed. Like they're like, let's just give you more stuff to care about. Like, let's show you how they live. Let's show you like what they do in their day to day. They just sit there and they train while they're like, some people are digging for watermelons or whatever.
Farming. They literally have farming equipment that they have tied up to the creatures, and they go to till the sand to find the black melons.
Yeah.
Or to I guess it seems like they're tilling it to soften it up so that people can go in and hand dig for the black melons.
That's what they were doing. I was trying to figure out why they were just like shifting around the sand. Okay,
because
that makes
sand,
so
when you
much
walk
more
around
sense now.
Yeah, sand when you walk around on top of it is really, really it shows the ingenuity of the Tuskens.
Yeah,
because
they're awesome. I love the Tuskens now.
Yeah, and interesting though. And one thing I think is really cool is that they are the Tuskens, not the Tusken Raiders. That the Raider, calling them Tusken Raiders, turns out to be an unfair stereotype.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That they're the Tuskens and they've got a rich creative history and a rich creative culture. They're not Raiders. Very specifically, they talk about in the episode how this tribe especially doesn't do that. And I think that's really cool. And especially the conversation around them, talking about the Tuskens as a culture. I love the idea of Boba Fett being humbled, like when he's fighting the warrior and he clearly doesn't know how to use the gaffy stick. And he's this infamous legendary bounty hunter, but he's got this weapon that he's never used before. And he's bad at it. And he's frustrated because he's Boba Fett. He should have this.
I think Tamara Morrison, don't quote me on this, but I think Tamara Morrison is like a master at, I don't know what the Maori staff fighting is called, but it's
100%. He requested in Mandalorian, the gaffy stick be extended so that he could include that in his choreography.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Love that for him.
Which is a testament to his acting chops, that he looks like he really doesn't know what he's doing in this scene. So he's rejecting the muscle memory of knowing what he's doing. The train makes a crate dragon like noise, which is a little fake out because you think a crate dragon's coming, but it's actually a train.
I thought it was going to be a crate dragon too. And this is another Dune reference. I was screaming worm sign because the crate dragon is coming and it's a sandworm. But yeah, it was just a train.
I mean, the thing is full of spice still.
Right.
But it turns out to be the wrong kind of worm. Sorry, Paul Atreides. I don't think there are any trains in Dune.
No, just dragonfly helicopters.
That was such a good movie. Bradley, do we want to talk about who's on the train? Because this was also on your bingo card.
You're right. I got another hit on my bingo card. And again, this is just a random ass thing I threw on my bingo card, not thinking it would actually show up in this show. So I am 100 percent so proud of myself for actually making this bingo card, because I thought like I was just gonna do this. I was gonna get like one hit and that was it. And this wasn't gonna be worth my time to talk about on the show. But clearly it is, because I've got almost
you're doing great.
I've got 7 hits already on there, so it's like, damn. I'm counting the free space as a hit, but technically only 6.
The free space was Boba Fett.
Right, there you go. But yeah, no, pikes. Let's talk about the pikes. I thought that was a random thing to throw in, but nonetheless, clearly I also thought of this random thing because I put it on the bingo card. Why? Just like a curious, why them?
I think it goes to show, remember we saw the swoop gang last week, and then later on this episode we will see them again. It goes to show that, again, in the absence of Jabba the Hutt, Tatooine is starting to descend into lawlessness in the criminal underworld, and part of that is other organizations that would not have operated on Tatooine are beginning to operate on Tatooine. So you've got the first step is basically immediate anarchy, which is people that were already there, the swoop gangs.
And like what happened to Cobb Vanth and his village.
Oh, yeah. When they blew up the second Death Star, because, that would have been occurring around the same time. We always assumed that the defeat of the Empire was why that the Red Key Raiders moved in. But what if it's the death of Jabba the Hutt?
Yeah, that's true. Like, maybe the blowing of the Death Star gave them permission because they knew they weren't going to get checked by the Empire, which probably would have been in the towns. But in terms of the outer towns,
it also happens the same day. So it could have just taken them that long to get together and get out to Mos Pelgo.
That's true.
One final detail in this sequence that I noticed, I love that in the funeral scene, Boba helps carry the dead Tuskens to the fire. But he does not place them on there. He hands them to other of their members of their tribe, who are the ones that actually lay them to rest.
After the train attack, the Tuskens burn their dead, and Boba has a plan to help the raiders out. He decides to attack some local bandits at the cool spot called Tashi Station, stealing their speeders and restoring an old deleted scene characters back into canon.
Yeah, sorry, I skipped ahead to the fire scene. I'm so excited to bring up that detail. Whoops. Everything is totally planned on the show. We are not making it up.
Of course not.
We are Disney, and we had a plan 100% this whole time.
We are George Lucas. We wrote everything down, and we knew all 3 movies before they happened.
We definitely didn't insert whole sequences into episode 6 just to fix all of the plot holes that we created by episode 5. Let's talk about Tashi Station.
Yes. Okay, so here's the thing. I didn't know this is what it was at first.
Neither did I. I thought it was a random place.
Neither did I. I had to go back and check. I knew who Fixer and Cammy were.
You did. Okay.
I did know that.
Right.
But I didn't put together that, this is Tashi Station.
Right. I had no idea. Because, to be fair, I'd never seen the deleted scene. So it wasn't something that clicked in my brain that I was that's Tashi Station. Until I went back and watched the deleted scene, and I was like, oh, the bandits or whatever we're going to call them, they were playing the same quote unquote Pac-Man video game or whatever's going on in the corner. You can hear the sounds of the video game that they're playing. And then if you look in the deleted scene, it's a very similar spot where 2 guys are playing a video game in the background. I just thought that was so interesting.
Yeah, it just goes to show, Calvin, that you may have seen a lot of Star Wars, but there's still more Star Wars for you to watch.
I still haven't seen. Yeah,
there's always more Star Wars to watch. No, I love this whole sequence. I love seeing Fixer and Cammy. I love the idea that they're still there and still going to Tashi Station years later.
What else do they have to do?
Yeah, it almost kind of lends a poignant note to the opening of the novelization of The Last Jedi is an alternate future that Luke dreams about of what like would have happened if he'd stayed on Tatooine, and he ends up marrying Cammy, which we know is not canon because Luke Skywalker is gay, obviously.
Obvious.
I'm pretending that Heir to the Jedi didn't happen.
I don't know what that is. So.
I do not acknowledge that book.
I don't know what that is.
That is the one singular instance in canon where Luke briefly gets a girlfriend.
Well, if it's in a bucket,
in the defense of Heir to the Jedi, I will do an episode on things I don't necessarily like per se. In the defense of Heir to the Jedi, it was written to be a Legends book and repurposed into canon. So, and he's also like 19 in it. So I'm giving
still deciding who he is.
He's exploring. He's gotten away from home for the first time. He's exploring a little bit.
It's like he's in college, you know. He's got to experiment.
You got to experiment.
Do a little experimenting. Maybe decides he's not into that. Joins a cult.
There you go.
But I think it's a poignant look that people who are not Luke Skywalker, some of them just stay in place. Yeah. And then trouble comes to them.
That's true. Yeah. I thought about it like in this scene because someone brought it to me. They're like, why would they still be there? And I was like, why would hillbilly people who are poor like not leave their hometown? You know what I mean? It's like the same thing. Like they just can't. They have nothing else to do. Like they're just my dad was a farmer. I'm a farmer. Like, you know what I mean? Kind of thing. So it's like they don't leave town.
Also, Biggs left and he died. Luke left and now he's a Jedi. And like was there when Darth Vader and the Emperor died. Like, why would you want to leave home? That doesn't seem fun.
Well, to be fair, Luke is an outlier because he was brought to the planet. He technically wasn't born there, where I'm assuming Cammy and Fixer were born there, right? Because that's
presumably
their life is. And then with Biggs, he just joined the fucking army. So he was like, bye. And then like, that's the risk you take, I guess. And he joined the army. So it's like.
You join the army, you defect, you join the rebellion.
That's right. Sorry. He didn't join the army because the army is evil in this scenario. So it's like, he didn't join the army.
I do have to say that Boba fighting with the rifle and then the gaffy stick is fucking rad as hell. Like, they promised us very good action in this show, and I do think they are delivering. One thing that I do want to note with that too, I took a little bit of martial arts training when I was in college, and one of the things that my instructor taught me was a lot of it psychological. So if you can make yourself look terrifying, make a lot of noise, make kind of frightening looking faces, knock your opponent off balance, that can help give you an edge in a fight. And it's interesting that when Boba fights, his face kind of like scrunches up into this terrifying, like visceral look of rage. So it's very interesting that that's kind of coming through. And I don't know whether or not that was part of Tamura Morrison's training in his life, part of that culture. I'm not from that culture, so I can't really speak to it, but I would be interested to learn more about it and how much of it informs the way that Boba fights.
I only have one qualm with this whole entire scene, and that is I feel really bad for the guy who owns Tashi Station, who has to now move all these fucking unconscious aliens like out of his bar / store. Like, I don't really quite sure what Tashi Station is, because he said he had to go pick up power converters, so it's like also a Best Buy. Like, I'm not sure what Tashi Station is, but
it's definitely like a gas station / restaurant / convenience store. I mean, like, it's probably the only one for a good like 50-mile radius, and so it's also the local watering hole,
right?
I mean, Charles, have you read the Kenobi novel?
I have not read the Kenobi novel.
Okay, yeah, there's a very similar I forget what the name of the settlement is, but there's a very similar place to that, and one of the main characters in the Kenobi novel like runs that little establishment that they have.
Interesting.
Yeah, that also goes into some Tusken culture. which is fun.
People have been bringing that up all day today, or the past couple of days since the episode aired. People have been bringing that the Tusken culture was also explored in Kenobi, and that was one of the points where they started getting humanized. I mean, the real big first time was Asherad Het.
Yes, Asherad Het is. I haven't consumed any of his Legends media, but he is referenced in Kenobi.
Yes,
the novel.
Asherad Het, Bradley, for you and our listeners who are maybe not familiar with Legends. So Asherad Het was kind of an attempt to subvert the way the Tuskens were portrayed in Attack of the Clones and A New Hope. By the time we got to the Clone Wars, he was like a guy. He wasn't a Tusken himself, but he was raised by them and had a lot of their culture. And then he became a Jedi, and he was like having to team up with Anakin Skywalker, who hates Tuskens because they killed his mom and that whole thing. So he was the first character to come in and say, no, the Tuskens actually have a really nice culture. Actually, no, that's not fair. That was the first time I really learned about it. I think I would have to check. I think Knights of the Old Republic may be the first time that they delved into Tusken culture.
Yes. I mean, depending on like when individual stuff came out, but yeah.
Because KOTOR had to be after episode 1. I don't know if that was
I want to say 2000 for KOTOR.
We can do this fun thing called Charles Googles it real fast.
Damn, we couldn't go a whole season without you mentioning this stupid video game. Like, we were so close. We were already in the second episode, and you just damn.
I was going to bring it up this episode if Charles wasn't. So
I thought personally, I thought that I did a really good job by making it all the way until episode 3
right
of this before I mentioned it. It came out in 2003.
After Attack of the Clones. That's interesting.
It came out after Attack of the Clones. I'm just looking to see if I can tell when Asherad Het first appeared. His first appearance. Aha! Nope. Asherad Het was the first one, because Asherad Het first appeared in Star Wars number 10, published on September 22nd, 1999. There we go. Yep.
There you go.
So there's your Legends education for the day. I'm sorry you had to learn that. I'm sorry you had to learn that.
Yeah, I was like, we need like a section of every episode where it's like our Legends section of the Legend lesson of the day.
I'm about to steal Rupalp's Podrace entire gimmick and just wholesale lift. Is it Legends or did I just make it up? Is it Legends
or did you just make it up? That's right. We might as well steal it at this point because, honestly.
Or do my version of it where I made you do the 2 truths and a lie.
Right.
In our episode 0.
Up next, Boba returns to camp with the speeder bikes that he stole and goes through a whole montage on teaching the Tuskens on how to ride them. With this new technology, they attack the train and take it down. Boba strikes a deal with the train's occupants, the Pikes, that they must pay a toll to use the Tuskens' land if they want to continue moving their spice.
I would straight up die for the Tusken child.
So cute. He was so happy when he figured out how to use the mirror.
Like, did it. I was like, man, this kid is so annoying in episode 1. And by the end of it, I was like, yeah, okay, that's kind of cute. And when we got to the mirror scene, by the time we were done the mirror scene, I was like, I would throw my whole body in front of this child to protect them. I would. Mad props to that actor. We discussed him last time, but let me refresh our audience on who that is. That is a kid named Wesley Kimmel, who is doing the Tusken Kid. So we talk about in Mandalorian how impressive it is for Din Djarin to be like covered by his helmet the whole time and still act and emote and make us care. And here are a bunch of Tuskens doing exactly the same thing. And they don't even speak a language we can comprehend until this episode. I don't give a fuck what the internet says. The bit where he goes like a bantha and bounces up and down on the speeder bike is funny as fuck.
Hilarious.
Absolutely fucking hilarious.
It's like it goes like this.
And his next line of never mind makes it for me. I love
those
it.
shots are framed really well. Just like the just seeing them all in the line there. I just those kinds of shots and stuff I find hilarious.
Kelvin, do you want to tell us for this sequence all the way up to the end of the train sequence, before I go too much further, do you want to tell us any Dune references you spotted here?
I was gonna go a little bit more into this with the lizard stuff later. But there's
one big one. There's one big one. Do you want to tell us about? What is the train? What is the train carrying? Is it a massive Dune reference?
Oh yeah, it's spice. I mean, George Lucas ripped the drug spice off. Why was he not creative enough to at least create a different name for the drug? But but yeah, it is a train carrying spice. As you made the comparison earlier about the train being a worm shape and having spice in it. So I mean, the worms in Dune create the spice. And there's also just like there's always been the comparison between the Tuscans and the Fremen in a native culture to this desert planet that goes out into the desert fully covered. The Fremen have their still suits with their mouthpieces. The Tuscans also have their bandages and they have their mouthpieces. And they are good at fighting. And here we have an outsider coming in and training them in the way that Paul does the Fremen too. There's a lot more. I mean, like George Lucas was making the comparison between Luke Skywalker and Paul Atreides in A New Hope, but I mean, here it's a lot more about between Boba and Paul, and it's a lot more explicit to me. Maybe it's just because Dune has been in my mind recently. Is the Boba comparison and the Luke comparison,
and I think it's also worth noting that both Boba and Paul, to an extent, embrace the cultures in which they find themselves. Mm-hmm. And that being a big difference is a lot of discussion about a lot of somewhat toxic discussion. So I'm not really going to delve into it too much of, does this count as the whole savior outsider comes in and solves our problems for us? And one point that's brought up over and over again, that's a positive in the way that Bo interacts with the Tuscans. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the same sort of applies to Paul Atreides as well, where they come in and they kind of teach them how to defend themselves, but they also embrace their culture.
Yes. Yeah. There's very much a combining of like Paul's own knowledge that he's gotten from being brought up under his father, under Duncan Idaho, under Thibor Hawat, under...
I want to be under all of those people.
Under Duncan Idaho, yes. But yeah, and Gurney Halleck, that was the other one. But he gets all of that training and combines that with the Fremen culture that he joins and goes on to lead, which we can obviously see here with Boba teaching the Tuscans how to ride speeders.
And use that strategy to take on the train.
Also, one thing about the train, I found it really interesting that like this is the event that cements the Tuscans, like cements the Tuscans' trust in Boba and allows him to go through their ritual, because like Boba's arguably one of the other more humiliating moments in Boba's life was in that Clone Wars arc or episode when they were on the train and he got locked up in that box and sold as a slave by Ventress. And so that was like a really low point. And then we got a really high point on trains with like put down upon people. I'm not thinking of the right word for that. Oppressed people. There we go.
Oppressed people, marginalized people.
Marginalized people. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the interesting things about the Pikes and the way they react, which, side note, can we talk about their ugly little fish faces?
Oh, I love it.
I couldn't tell that they were the Pikes until I went on Twitter and they said that they were the Pikes. I will say
Those ugly little ugly pike faces. They look like capitalist drug dealers.
Yeah.
Ugh.
We can't survive without our water car.
Right. I felt so bad for them because I was like, why are all these aquatic slimy creatures trying to come to this desert planet? It's like,
money,
guys, like
it's money.
Y'all are suffering.
Y'all are coming onto the Tuscans' land for no reason and just suffering to make money. Like, no one wins here.
I'm like, you guys, your skin's gonna dry out. Like,
but it's an interesting thing that they say where the guy is kind of trying to like make excuses. And one of the ones he tries to use is, well, we thought you were uncivilized raiders. He specifically says, we thought you were uncivilized raiders, because everybody talks about the Tuscans in universe as Tuscan raiders.
Right.
And that in universe led them to believe that the Tuscans were going to attack. So they said, okay, we see Tuscans on our route. We have to attack them first.
Right.
And so that's why they're rolling up and they're the aggressors. They come in and they say, oh, we're defending. They're defending because of an unfair stereotype that has been placed on the Tuscan people. And these other as outsiders come in and feel like they need to preemptively defend themselves with no evidence that the Tuscans would actually do this, which is a very interesting line that they included there. And I'm glad they included it.
I also took this as a weird, slightly racist take too, because I think like the Pike almost assumes that Boba is a Tuscan. Like, I was getting that vibe. Like, he thought that like Boba is the leader, and or this is what Tuscans look like under their mask, is just some old man who's sunburned. And like, I don't know if that's what he thought.
You can see the Pike's confusion that they're able to communicate at all.
Yeah, like, they're like, wait, Pikes, we can talk to you?
The Pikes have developed this stereotype, racist view of the Tuscans. And so anything that starts to challenge that is really confusing to them. So for Boba to be there and be on the Tuscan side, it's very clear that the guy is completely confused as to what is going on.
He's also not being like, he's being really humble about it too. He's not being like, I am Boba Fett, I am protecting these Tuscans. He is simply being like, this is their land. You need to pay them if you want to use it. End of story.
Right. I happen to be the guy that speaks basic.
Yeah.
That's why. And Boba never says, I say this, I say that. He really does, like, he's just speaking. He's just the mouthpiece by which he's communicating, which is another thing that's awesome, because there is a communication barrier between the Tuscans and the Pikes here. And all Boba is doing is being the one to resolve it. And he is saying, get the hell off their ancestral land, which is 100% correct. And he was right to say that.
Right. I also think too, this is, so now I was confused before when the show started, like why we needed to see the Tuscan scenes. And I think I'm starting to get it. And I think what I'm getting is that like, clearly Boba is developing these relations with the Tuscans / the natives of the planet. Right. So I think what that's going to come into play later is that, you know, when he needs his quote unquote army or his people to back him as the quote unquote leader of Tatooine, you already have the native people on your side. That's really important for controlling power in the entire planet, because clearly they're the people who
it's their planet
here. Right. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, maybe we're going to get to a point in the show where the Tuscans are just kind of walking around town and like interacting with the people, like, because they just are back to their status as, you know, the people who are living on this planet and it's their planet.
It would be interesting, especially off the back of Mandalorian being the first time that Tuscans and the settler people worked together toward a common goal. So there's an interesting note about this sequence as well, with Boba saying that that's their land. If you're going to use it, you're going to pay them. Do you remember all the way back in Mandalorian season 1, episode 5? There's a kind of out of nowhere scene where Din and shitty little twink boy, I don't remember his name, run up on some Tuskens, and Din's like, we need passage across their land. Give me your binoculars. And he tosses the binoculars to him, and they let him go. This is the origin of that toll that Den pays in The Mandalorian.
Right. Like, it's almost like they started telling people, like, hey, you have to start paying a toll to the Tuskens if you ever want to get through or do something.
If you want to get through the Dune Sea without being attacked, you need to pay a toll to the Tuskens because it's their land.
Right.
And Den, very respectful of other cultures, as Din Djarin is, pays that toll. Although he does pay it with someone else's binoculars.
It's really interesting that like Tatooine is, and also with the Tuskens, is like the like backdrop for Boba's own like rebirth here as a different person, because it's like we got this like really wild place, you know, or like this place that seems untamed to the outside eye, and you've got this person, you know, this is the kind of place that within literature and stuff people go to either like go and be isolated or like go and try to take over. And so it's what I think would just be really cool is if like Boba tried with the effect of Boba on like with the Tuskens here, with what you're saying is like bringing Tatooine like out of the quote unquote outer rim and making it more of a tamer and more forgiving place, pulling it out of the grip of some of these criminal and derogatory oppressive elements.
Yeah, if he's almost trying to clean it up by becoming the Godfather so that he can make sure things run in a more honorable way.
Right.
That would be a pretty solid reason.
He wants to rule with respect, not fear.
I have sort of wondering like why he suddenly decided he wanted to be a crime lord, and that could be an explanation for it. Two other small notes on this sequence. Train droid is amazing.
Tiny little.
Can we talk about tiny little spider moving droid? I love them.
He's cute.
And we also got a little more information on the black melons. They're explicitly identified as black melons in the show, and the inside is described as milk. This is another comic reference to the Obi-Wan Kenobi comic. This show really did just say comic book rights over and over again. Between the black melons and black motherfucking chrysanthemum, I will not get over this.
I keep mispronouncing his name in my head as black chrysanthemum.
Chrysanthemum.
Don't tell him that. He'll rip your arms off.
Just a delicate little flower.
Oh yeah, he's totally a delicate little flower. The minute I saw him, I went, the monster fuckers are about to be fed. And then my next thought was, wait a minute, am I technically a monster fucker if I find black chrysanthemum very attractive? I had to ask some questions about myself that I'm still asking. No one wants to know the answer to this. I'm going to eventually show my boyfriend Book of Boba Fett, and we will have the same. I've sort of started laying the groundwork of him. So I was like, so I know you're really into like daddy types. How do you feel about going a little extra mile with that hair?
God.
The Tusken, I just love that moment when the Tusken and Black just like poked their head up over the thing and then just poked their head back down, and then all the pikes just like got pulled away.
Yeah, we haven't talked about the Tusken warrior in this episode, but she's a fucking badass and continues to be a badass.
Yeah.
I love her.
Yeah.
Joanna Bennett kicks ass.
Around the campfire, the Tuskens give Boba a congratulatory peyote lizard to get him high, so he wanders out in the desert for a tree branch. He brings it back, and they help him craft a gaffy stick, thus solidifying Boba as one of their own.
I badly want to get someone of indigenous descent on the show, which I'm pretty sure we're going to have someone. I don't want to write checks that my mouth can't cash or whatever the saying is. But I do want to ask them about their take on tropes like this. I really liked this sequence personally. But it's one of those issues where I look at this whole sequence and I'm like, there's a lot of very smart things probably being said about this. I'm not the person to say it, and I'm not the person to regurgitate it. If people do write think pieces on this, and I see them, I will link them on my Twitter.
Yeah. I just feel like every time in sci-fi you get any kind of hallucinogenic trip, it can definitely be also compared to Dune. The whole imbibing stuff and getting visions as part of a coming of age ritual is also a part of Fremen culture in Dune. So
I think this also does the whole thing where it proves our theory of, or not our theory, but just the general thought that spice in Star Wars, like what it's for, right? So when he flicks the spice in his face, and then he's just like, the lizard is going to be your guide. And he's like, the guide for what? And it's like this hallucinogenic trip, right? So it's just a very interesting thing. Like, also, I didn't quite understand how the lizard was guiding him, because we didn't actually see the lizard in any of the dreams. So I wasn't quite sure how the lizard was guiding him. And also, clearly, when you do hallucinogenic drugs like this, not that I would know because I've never done them, government, but if I had, depending on your mindset, right, is how you're going to have how your trip is going to go. And so for Boba, clearly he has a lot of repressed like feelings / emotions through all the different scenes that he sees.
Well, so we see a lot of the flashbacks again. We see Camino again. I love the shot of him like holding. It's the shot of him holding Jango's helmet again, but now it's Boba's face, like adult face in the helmet. Yeah, I'm really curious, and I want to know, and I'm going to try to find these resources if they're available, how much of this particular sequence in particular, everything from the conversation they have in the tent all the way through the end of the episode, what if it draws from actual indigenous peoples throughout the world? That's something that I'm really curious about now. Yeah. So that's something that like, I really want to know more about this. And it's something that, again, if I see these resources, I'm going to try to share them on our Twitter. But looking at it in the context of the actual episode itself, I just want to back up real fast and talk about their conversation before he gets the lizard flicked in his face. Because we learn a lot of interesting things about the Tuskens here in a very short period of time. We learn there's a lot of different Tusken tribes. They are not just one group of people. There's a lot of them. We learned that some of them are killers. The ones that we encounter in A New Hope are. But that they're not all like that. And we learned that Tatooine canonically used to be an ocean.
And this, they pull it from Knights of the Old Republic, right?
Yep. This was the backstory in Knights of the Old Republic, that it was a lush planet. The Rakatan Infinite Empire came in and said, serve us. And Tatooine was like, get bent. And the Rakatan Infinite Empire was like, you first, and glass the planet. And the glass eventually turned to sand. And the people who survived underground for that time reemerged and became the Tuskens. So we learn that that's a little bit canon now, at least that it used to be an ocean. They also dress Boba after he finishes his little getting the gaffy stick thing. They dress him in black. And one thing that was pointed out to me is if you look closely, he's still wearing part of that underneath his Beskar armor.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, so you're talking about like in Mando when he gets his armor back. Then
when he gets his armor back, he puts it on top of the Tusken robes.
The Tusken robes, right? Yes,
as opposed to the white underoos that he's been wearing.
Right. Yeah, he throws those nasty things out because they're gross, and then
he's been wearing them for weeks.
He switches over to his robes, and then when he finally gets his armor Mandalorian, he just keeps the skirt part.
Yeah, no, he's wearing the top part under it too. Like
that's right. You can kind of see it poking out. Yeah, you're right.
The neck thing, you can kind of see it poking out. I did love that. The shot of when he walks up to the blacksmith, and we see the shot of the blacksmith, and it's this bit of an engine that's like, or a bit of a hull that's like sticking out of the ground. That is a direct reference to a piece of art. You want to guess who the piece of art is by?
Ralph McQuarrie.
It is fucking obviously Ralph McQuarrie. It's a direct reference to a piece of Ralph McQuarrie concept art. The last thing I wanted to point out with this sequence is that we don't really see who the red eyes belong to in the episode.
In the tree.
In the tree. Yeah, but if we look at the concept art, they're Jawas.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he definitely has a repressed feeling about the Jawas, so not surprising.
Yeah. Please don't go Anakin Skywalker the Jawas, Boba. Please don't do it. Don't perpetuate this cycle. I'm begging you.
Do you think Boba's ever gonna like figure out that Anakin once went all apeshit on a tribe of Tuscans?
I don't think Boba knows who Anakin Skywalker is.
Well, he wasn't there something where he like went to ObiWan Kenobi's house or something to figure out who Luke was? Or
he knows. No, so yeah, so that is accurate. He
interacts with Mace and Obi-Wan in Clone Wars.
He does. He might have met Anakin when he was trying to kill Mace Windu.
Yeah.
But I don't think he made the connection because he just finds Luke Skywalker's name and he takes it to Vader. And Vader's like, okay, get the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
And Boba's like, okay, I got paid by. And then Vader shatters a window because he's so pissed off that he's found out that the Emperor lied to him. But yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if Boba Fett knows who Anakin Skywalker is.
Yeah, that's a good question, I guess, to get answered.
So then we get the final directed by and written by Jon Favreau, not surprising, but it was directed by Steph Green, which is of note because she is both a director on and a producer on The L Word Generation Q, which is the sequel series to The L Word. So there's your connection to our local tavern madam.
I'm looking at her IMDb page now.
Yeah,
she's directed on Luke Cage. She's directed on The Man in the High Castle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it looks like she's jumped on. She looks like she's a TV director, so she just comes on and does 1 or 2 episodes of TV shows.
Right.
She did some of Scandal. Ooh, this is neat.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, uh-oh, did she do How to Get Away with Murder? No. Okay.
She didn't.
That was
my
close.
Favorite show.
But she is 1 degree away from How to Get Away with Murder. So
she was on Scandal.
Right. So there you go.
She was not on the crossover episode.
Right.
I have 2 more overall notes for this episode. Did either of you notice that Boba Fett does the hand thing throughout this episode?
Boba Fett, where?
In the show, Bradley.
Oh.
Boba Fett's in the show.
Got it. I'm never going to get tired of that joke. Every time I talk to people about this show and they just say like, oh, Boba Fett this. I'm like, Boba Fett, where?
Jesus. You make me actively insane.
Okay, sorry.
You are the reason I drink.
What was your note again? I'm sorry.
Did either of you notice Boba Fett does the hand thing? What I'm calling the hand thing.
I have no clue what the hand thing is, so I can confidently say no.
So Boba Fett kind of does this thing. Let me describe it verbally for our listeners, where he holds the rifle in one hand and he takes the other hand and he rests it on his lower forearm as he stands. He does this motion in Return of the Jedi when he's standing behind Jabba. And he does it throughout this episode.
I did not notice that.
He does that. That's a little detail. that I just noticed that I wanted to bring up. And then I want to talk about a conspiracy theory. People are saying that they can hear at a point in the episode. I've heard you can hear it during the flashbacks, and I've heard a different part where you can allegedly hear it. But people are saying you can kind of hear Omega's theme in this episode.
At what point?
One of them I'm hearing is the Camino stuff, that it plays over the Camino stuff. And then there's another point I think I've read that people say that they heard the Omega theme. So Bradley, do you still think Omega's maybe going to show up or be revealed at the end of this season?
I mean, look, the way the show's going with these reveals of random ass characters from comic books and stuff, like, honestly, who knows what they're going to do? I mean, at this point, I think if they were smart and they didn't want to, quote unquote, blow their load on, the Bad Batch season 2, like to kind of reveal anything or make the stakes any less stakey in, Bad Batch. I think it would be fine showing her if she shows up, if it is a quote unquote end credit scene / like quick thing at the end of an episode. You know what I mean? Like something where it leaves it on a cliffhanger. So we don't really know what her purpose is yet. Like, so that they don't ruin anything for Bad Batch without making it a fun show or something like that. You know what I mean?
I can already see the fucking Screen Rant headlines. Book of Boba Fett spoils another Lucasfilm project. I can also see the YouTube videos. Star Wars in disarray. Spoilers abound.
I don't know. Anyway, I just think it would be interesting if she showed up. I don't necessarily need her to. I just think it would be interesting because I think that throws another thing at Boba, like, because I'm still struggling to figure out what the theme of this show is or what the message here is. Because I feel like with Mando, it was so clear, it's very much like finding your own family kind of thing. And here, I'm not sure if that's the situation, because like he kind of is doing that, but he's kind of not. I don't know. We'll see. I think it'll take a little bit more to figure out what the theme of the show is moving forward. But I feel like adding Omega to that would be good for Boba's character, only because he doesn't have any family. I mean, he never has really. He's always been a quote unquote clone. So it would be interesting to give him a sister, give him an actual family member, because he hasn't had a real family since his quote unquote father died.
It would be interesting given that the villains of the season are a brother and sister team.
What's another way to team up with your sister to take down another brother or sister? Who knows?
All right. Calvin, do you have any final thoughts on the Book of Boba Fett or educating Bradley on a book that he has not read and a movie he fell asleep during?
You fell asleep during Dune?
I did.
I'm sad for
one,
you.
like the new one.
Yeah.
I'm just sad
for you.
No, I liked it. Don't get me wrong. It just like, God, I was so tired, I guess. I don't know what happened. Like, I just fell asleep. I was like, what is going on? Like, I'm supposed to be enjoying this movie. Like, maybe if I rewatch it again,
give it another shot.
Be better. Yeah, give
That's
it
your
try.
Homework assignment. Go rewatch.
I'll try to watch Dune again. Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, no.
Real quick before we end everything, I did want to bring up one character or one actor that I saw in the credits that I was so confused on who they were, because how sometimes it takes a few days for the credits to kind of fill in the blanks of who everybody is and like all that stuff. So our favorite Black Wookiee is one of the actors listed in the end.
Yes.
And I was confused because I was like, who is this guy? And then I looked him up. I found him, and his name is Kerry Jones, and he is Black K in the episode. So I thought that was really cool. He's been in a couple different things, mostly for makeup department, special effects, stuff like that. But he was in an episode of Teen Wolf, so there's our gay connection right there. He was the alpha werewolf from the first season of Teen Wolf, it looks like. So he
has gotten hairier then.
Yep, he's just even more hairier now. So I love it. Good for him.
Yes, I was just so excited to see Black Chrysanthemum that I did not bring up the actor that actually portrays.
I felt like we deserve to tell people who he is.
We should definitely mention, yes, Carrie Jones, all over the place, special effects, makeup, shop supervisors, designers, and it's just all around like badass guy.
Yeah,
just go look at his credits. He's been all over the place. My final thought, speaking of actors we didn't bring up, and I apologize, I'm going to mispronounce this. Alfred Singh is the guy who plays the leader of the Pikes. So in case we were curious, looks like primarily a stunt performer, but he was the leader of the Pikes in this.
Nice.
My final thought is more Black Chrysanthemum, please. And I would like Chelly Aphra cameo. Just confirm she's alive, please.
Yeah.
Just confirm she's around or give her own show. That would also be nice. Just let Alyssa Wong write it. She's been doing the comics run. She's very good. Basically, what I'm saying is pander more to me specifically. This is a great amount of pandering directly to me, but you can pander harder to me.
Yeah, I was like, so far they're doing a pretty good job. They're meeting all my expectations and giving me things that I thought we were never going to get. So keep coming, like keep giving me more. Like that's all I want. But, like give me some more of this stuff because I love it.
All right, Kelvin, what are your pluggables? Do you want to tell us where we can find First Steps Star Wars podcast?
I can. You can find us at firststepsstarwars.com or on Twitter at firststepssw. Steps has an S and then another S for Star Wars. Twitter's at First Steps SW and Instagram is at First Steps Star Wars. All of the words are spelled out for that one.
What the fuck do they have a website and we don't? I've been to their website. It's a really good website.
Thank you. My mom made it.
Well, maybe we just need to employ your mom. We just need to call your mom.
She does this kind of thing for a living. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, Calvin, thank you so much.
Wonderful to be on with you guys and talk about this with you.
Yes, thank you for coming on and talking about a current Star Wars thing.
Right.
Yeah,
it's going to be like what? Like another 2 years before you can talk about this with your podcast.
Yeah. You know, maybe, you know, like we were saying earlier, maybe once Andor Kenobi and or Bad Batch and Andor come out, I get to talk about something current while not discussing the scope of Star Wars. But yeah.
All right. Well, once again, Calvin, thank you for coming on. You're welcome back anytime. Everybody go check out First Steps, a Star Wars podcast. And Bradley, run our socials so I can start drinking.
Thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gaze.
Did we forget something? Email us at goldsquadrongaze@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at goldsquadgaze. And you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at goldsquadrongaze. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gaze, where we post this podcast as well as exclusive video content.
Please join us next week and every week for another episode of Gold Squadron Gaze.
No, I don't like it when you agree with me and then say, however.
So this is what we call a give and take. When you compliment somebody, you compliment their appearance and then you tell them like how ugly they are at the same time.